As bold as lions. As bold as lions.
As bold as lions.
As bold as lions.
You're listening to the As Bold as Lions podcast.
I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the As Bold as Lions podcast. My name is Derek. So good to have you join me today. As I've referenced and as kind of promised, especially in the last episode that I did, was going to start a new series, and that's where we're at here with a series titled Hymns That I Love. Hymns That I Love. And probably seems kind of self-explanatory to put that title out there, but the podcast is in a lot of ways in support of an album that I just released. It was released on June 28th and had been working on it off and on over the spring, especially March, April, May, and getting some of these songs ready and recorded. And so what you just heard was a clip leading in from one of those songs, the song that we're going to be talking about today. And you'll hear that interspersed in the podcasts that we do in this series, that you'll hear these clips from these songs. Somewhat similar in style and in what I did with the Songs of the Season podcast. I did that in 2021 on the podcast and on my blog, and also in 2020 on the blog, and decided I just want to talk about all these songs at Christmas time. So there's like 8 of them that I think we did. And interestingly enough, those still get some listens and some hits even throughout the year. So it makes me think that people are still thinking about Christmas music, even when it's not always December. At least a few people are. So similar to that, if you remember those. And just transitioning here and into the kind of the focus of what we're doing. Just had this question: what is it about hymns? You know, why do we still sing these songs? Some of them several years old, many 100 plus years old, maybe the end of the 18th century, 1800s. I think that's the 19th century. Anyway, the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, a lot of hymns written during that time frame, and even in the Christmas songs that I've talked about, there's some songs there that are quite old, that they take some lyrical content that maybe is like early AD. I think one of those was O Come Emmanuel, or one of those songs is very old in some of its origins. So why do we still sing them? And I think the older that I get, the more I appreciate them. The older I get, the more I tend to want to discover them more and look for them, which I think it's a little bit harder maybe at times to find hymns, at least in the format of music sharing that we have now. We've really switched to consume music through streaming services and streaming platforms, so Spotify and Apple Music and things like that, where an artist really doesn't release things so much anymore on a CD or some kind of hard copy format. It's all digitized, and it's all, it's still downloadable if you want to do that, but even that's kind of rare. But it's out there to stream, so you can just kind of listen to it whenever you want. You can save it if you like it or whatever. But where do hymns kind of fit into that whole discussion? Because some of these are some older songs, and I think a lot of these platforms also tend to push what's the latest and what's the greatest. As an artist, I've heard that Spotify really rewards those people that just continually put out singles. Like every 4 to 6 weeks, you're putting out a new song, and that kind of bumps you up in the algorithm of what they push out. And because it's almost like this social media meets music type of thing, where you're discovering new things and you're sharing things and you're liking things and blah, blah, blah. And they know that to get people to listen to stuff, like we push it out, you can advertise it. And it rewards you to just keep putting out new stuff all the time. And I look at hymns and say, well, they probably don't sell or reach as well unless you're a group like Casting Crowns or Mercy Me, Lauren Daigle, somebody like that. They decide to go back and do a hymn of some sort and get it onto the charts, which all of those artists have. I don't know if they've had charting songs for those. Probably Casting Crowns has, but otherwise we don't see these a whole lot. Like we kind of have to go looking for them and finding them. But yet we all kind of know these songs. If you say Amazing Grace, everybody knows, like, okay, yeah, I know that's a familiar song, we recognize them. And, honestly, they were around before many of us were alive, and they're most likely going to outlive most of us, if Jesus tarries. And I think that so many that are memorable because they have sound doctrine. That's my opinion. Like there's a lot of songs that are hymns that I'm sure we don't sing or don't know of, and maybe the theology or some of it wasn't real tight or solid, but a lot of the songs that I think we do keep singing have stood that test of time because they have just good theology, good doctrine. They've held up under scrutiny, and kind of no matter what denominational background, upbringing you have, like there's a lot of just pervasiveness, I guess, if I can say that, to a lot of these songs, where it's kept them popular and still widely sung and widely acknowledged. As a person who has a background in worship leading, background in church music, I think about some of this, from time to time, and the staying power of some of our songs and the music that we're writing. Because certainly the volume of music has increased, just what is being put out on a daily basis. Because if you're an independent person, myself included, I'm an example of this. You can get on your computer, you can get on your phone and make some kind of beats and add some, drop in lyrics and whatever, and have it uploaded to distribute, within a few minutes, if that's something you want to do. So we have this plethora of music, more songs than we probably ever had. But I ask and I think about what are the songs that we're still going to be singing in 5 years, in 10 years, 50 years. It's tough to judge that, but again, going back to a song like Amazing Grace, you consider that song itself is like 250 years old. It's written around 1772, and that it's pretty amazing, no pun intended. So songs that will stand the test of time, that will be sung from one generation to the next and keep getting brought back into our services. That's a pretty remarkable thing. And I think about that sometimes, like what songs are we singing now that will still be sung in the future? So as we progress through this series, Hymns That I Love, we're going to go through the songs in the order that they appeared on the EP. This Hymns Volume 1. It's not necessarily a reason behind how they came about on there. Some were recorded earlier than others, but just kind of the flow of the disc that seemed to make sense the most to me, putting them in that arrangement. I did start with His Eyes on the Sparrow, and that's the first one we're talking about. And then the last one we'll talk about in the podcast is Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. And I don't think that was the last song I recorded, but that was somewhere in the mix of all of them. His Eyes on the Sparrow was one of the first songs that when I thought about this project, like that's one that I want to do for sure. And that's part of my own taste and my own likes, but it's also a song that has some personal meaning and significance. The Bible verses that we derive this song from. And actually, you may remember a podcast, maybe you've listened to it. If you haven't, the title is His Eye is on the Sparrow in Matthew 6:25-27. And that was from a series called My Favorite Verses. Talked about some Bible verses that I really enjoy. And that was a series from late last year. I'd encourage you to go back and find that if you're interested. But some of my own personal connection to the song and those verses are talked about in that episode. Won't go into it a ton today, but just a plug to go back if you haven't heard that already.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? And why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me.
So what is the background of His Eyes on the Sparrow? What's the context? When was it written? Those are all things that are kind of important to me as we dive into this series. Written in 1905, and this lady's first name, which I hope I don't butcher, is Civilia D. Martin. And then it was given a melody to it by a composer by the name of Charles H. Gabriel. Civilia, she was inspired by her and her husband's friendship with a Mr. and Mrs. Doolittle in Elmira, New York. Mr. and Mrs. Doolittle were part of the inspiration behind this song. What was interesting about this couple, the Doolittles, the husband was crippled, he was wheelchair bound, and his wife was bedridden for 20 years. Yet they were upbeat and hopeful. They were an example to Civilia, the lyricist for this song, and her husband, just kind of being around them and seeing them and observing them. And so it got to the point where Civilia's husband just asked, like, how can you have this frame of mind, this kind of positive attitude of everything towards life, when obviously life's not easy. You know, you're in a wheelchair and your wife is bedridden, and you know, how do you stay upbeat through all that? And Mrs. Doolittle's reply was the offering that really gave us the refrain for this song. She said, "His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me." And Civilia Martin, she wrote this song. She sent the lyrics over to Charles Gabriel. He's also person who wrote I Stand Amazed and Will the Circle Be Unbroken, quite a few different hymns in his catalog. And from what I could tell, it looks like these two kind of collaborated on several songs over the years, probably early 1900s. The simple theme of the song is supported again by Matthew 6. Matthew 6:26 says, "Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they?" What strikes me about this song is that it acknowledges our hearts can be lonely. It acknowledges our hearts can be lonely, and we can long for heaven and home. And certainly that mood can resonate with a lot of us these days, just in the chaos and the turmoil of what is going on around us. And we kind of just are ready to be in a better place. But the answer to the song doesn't come through as, you know, Jesus, come back for me. I'm ready to go. I want to see heaven. Like that's not what comes through in this song. And that's not what came through for the folks that kind of rendered these lyrics and these images, the Doolittles. The answer is Jesus is my portion and he is my constant friend.
Let not your heart be troubled. His tender words I hear, and resting on his goodness, I lose my doubt and fear. Though by the path he leadeth, but one step I may see. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Just those words of "let not your heart be troubled," his tender words I hear, resting on his goodness, I lose my doubts and fear. Though by the path he leadeth, still one step I may see. You know, he's leading by the path, leading us along the path. We may not even see quite to what the next step is. It reminds me of Psalm 119, verse 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And it's just this recognition that I need Jesus every step of the way. You know, and that may look like a crutch to the world. That may look like this thing that we just have to kind of lean on and always rely on, and we're not really independent and you know, kind of slaves to a master kind of thing. And you know, that helplessness, in a way, that is real. Like, we are helpless. We can't necessarily figure out life on our own. We can't. We need Jesus in every situation and along the path, every step of the way. It reminds me of another hymn, which not going to cover on this series, but I need thee every hour. I need you every step. But that is not a crutch. That is not this thing that really ties us down. And in fact, it's that dependence on the Lord, which allows us to truly find life, that we lose our doubts, we lose our fear, we gain his reassurance, we gain our true identity. And I'm reminded of that throughout this song. So today, as we close out this first episode in this series, I want you to know that if there's any doubt in your mind, you must know that his eye is indeed on the sparrow. Beyond just putting ourselves in the sparrow's position, we realize his care and his watch is over us is even greater than how he cares for a simple bird. It's much greater. And this song reminds us of two things. One, we are valued by our Maker. And two, he is still in control of this world. We may not see heaven for many, many more years. But do we have the ability to trust that his will is for our good and our benefit? Do we have the ability to trust that his eye is on us? I hope that you do, and I hope that this song blesses you as you consider the depth of it, the meaning. Again, it always amazes me that a song that 100 plus years old can still speak right into the circumstances of my life right now. And this song in particular has done that time and time again for me, for my family, and I hope it will as well for you. Just want you guys to know that I love you, and I can't wait to share another hymn next time. If you haven't already, I invite you to go check out this song and this album, which if you're listening on a streaming platform, having spoken about those quite a bit here, it might just be a couple of clicks away for you to find this song and be Derek Charles Johnson, His Eyes on the Sparrow. Try to put out some links for that as well. Closing with our theme verse, Ephesians 5:15 through 17. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. God bless you guys.
I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Hey guys, this is Derek Charles Johnson. You have been listening to the As Bold as Lions podcast. I am a blogger, a songwriter, an artist, and if you've been encouraged by this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe and share, and head over to DerekCharlesJohnson.com for more encouraging content. God bless.